The trade station was always alive, always full of voices that mixed together like waves crashing into the metal walls. Lights flickered above rows of shops, vendors shouted in strange tongues, and the scent of too many alien foods filled the air. Some smells were sweet, some sour, and others made the stomach twisty if one wasn't used to them. Daniel walked through the mine hall with tired steps. He had been working on the cargo dock since early morning, unloading crates aviertan most aliens cold lift, tightening bolts and fixing clamps. The job was hard, dirty and endless, but for him, a woman, it was just another day. He wiped sweat from his forehead and let out a long breath. All he wanted now was a place to sit, to eat something warm, and maybe drink until his muscles stopped aching. The neon sign of a small dinner caught his eye. Its letters glowed unevenly, buzzing in the air like an insect. It wasn't much, but it promised food, and that was enough. He pushed the door open and stepped inside. The dinner wasn't crowded, but it wasn't quiet either. Groups of aliens sat around tables, talking in sharp or deep voices that echoed through the air. Some glanced at him, their eyes wide and curious. Humans were still rare, and most wakame were either merchants with loud mouths or fighters looking for trouble. Daniel ignored the stars and sat at the counter. The stool wobbled slightly beneath his weight. He leaned forward, resting his arms on the cold surface, and waited. It didn't take long before Someone approached. She wasn't human. The waitress moved carefully, her steps light but unsteady, as if each one carried too much weight for her thin frame. Her skin was soft grey, smooth like polished stone, and her hair shimmered like strands of silver that caught a very bit of light. But it was her eyes that held Daniel's attention, large, golden, and bright, though shadowed with exhaustion. She smiled at him politely, though the corners of her lips trembled as if even smiling required effort. The tray in her hands shook just enough for Daniel to notice. Welcome, she sighed softly, her voice calm but weak. Her accent gave away that she wasn't raised around humans. What will you have? Daniel blinked, surprised by how fragile she seemed. He expected servers on a trade station to be tough, hardened by long hours, but she looked like she could collapse if Someone pushed her too hard. A drink, he sighed gently, and something warm to eat, whatever you recommend. She nodded, writing his order quickly on a small pad. The way her hand moved told him she was trying not to show her shaking fingers. Her name tag caught his eye as she turned to leave, it read lira. When she returned, she placed the glass in front of him with careful precision, as if afraid to spill a single drop. Daniel noticed how she held her breath while doing it, steadying herself. You okay? Asked without thinking. Her golden eyes flicked up to meet his. For a moment she looked startled, like no one had asked her that before, then she forged another smile. Infine, she whispered, it's just a long shift. My kin doesn't recover as fast as yours, it's difficult sometimes. Daniel tilted his head, recover. Yes, she sighed, we can only push on. Our bodies give everything in a single burst of energy and then it takes days to build back. But her work doesn't wait for us. She laughed softly, but it was a sad laugh, so we kept going even if we are already empty. Daniel frowned but didn't press her further. She clearly didn't want pity. He watched her as she moved to her tables. Each time her steps grew slower, her back bent a little more. She smiled at every customer, no matter how rude or careless they were. A large reptilian trad her barked at her for being too slow and she bowed her head in apology. Daniel's jaw tightened but he stayed silent. As he ate, he couldn't shake the thought of her words. Only once, then empty. That sounded like living life on the edge of collapse every day. When she returned to check on him, her hands were trembling more than before. Daniel spoke softly. Sit down a minute, you look like you need it. Her eyes widened again, almost as if he had said something forbidden. He cannot. If the manager says me resting, he will lose my shift. Then just breathed, Daniel sighed, lowering his voice. At last for a second, no one is watching. For a heartbeat, she stood still, staring at him. Then she gave the smallest nod, almost unnoticeable, and drew in on a slow breath. Her shoulders raised just a little. Thank you, she whispered before rushing off again. Daniel finished his food quietly, but his eyes kept following her across the room. He wasn't sure we cared. ma ibe because she looked like a candle burning too fast, about to go out. And no one else seemed to notice. Not until she stumbled. It was near the end of her circuit around the dinner. She carried a try-stacked with glasses, her hands trembling so hard it was a miracle they didn't fall already. She made it halfway across the room before her knees buckled. The tray slipped, glass shattered against the floor, liquid spreading across the tiles. Conversations around the dinner stopped for a moment, then continued as if nothing happened. A few aliens glanced their way, but their eyes were cold, uninterested. Just another waitress collapsing, just another weak worker. But Daniel didn't say it that way. He was already moving, pushing his stool back with a loud scrape. In 2 strides he was there, catching her before she hit the ground. Her golden eyes looked up at him with them filled with shock. Her lips trembled as she tried to speak. White you're still strong. After working all day, her voice was weak, disbelieving in every word. Daniel held her steady, his arms firm around her fragile frame. Yeah, he sighed, his voice calm. Humans can keep going again and again. Her breathing hiccupped. For a moment her eyes seemed almost afraid. White again so soon, she whispered. And then her body went limp in his arms. Daniel's heart pounded. He looked down at her fainted form, then around the dinner, but no one moved to help. No one cared. So it was up to him. And in that moment Daniel realized something. Maybe humans weren't just strange to them. Maybe to someone like Lyra, a human's strength wasn't just unusual. Maybe it was hope. Daniel's arms tightened around Lyra's faint body as silence filled his ears. The chatter of the dinner faded behind the rush of his heartbeat. She was light, far too light, as if her bones and skin held barely enough strength to keep her standing. Her grey skin felt cold against his arms. He looked around the dinner expecting someone, Agnone, to rush over. But the customers only turned their heads for a brief moment, then went back to their meals and conversations as if nothing had happened. One alien near the window muttered, "Happens all the time, they work until they drop." Daniel clenched his jaw, his hands tightened protectively on Lyra, and no one helps. The alien shrugged, "We should way, they always jet back up after a while." The cold indifference into the words made Daniel's stomach twist. He wasn't raised to think like that. Back on Earth, even strangers would lift a fallen worker, or at least call for help. It seemed collapse was just a normal sight something people had learned to ignore. But Daniel couldn't ignore it, not when he felt the soft flutter of her shallow breathing against his chest. "Damn it," he whispered, and without another word, he lifted her properly into his arms and carried her toward the back of the dinner. The swinging door to the staff area cracked as he pushed it open with his shoulder. The kitchen had rushed out, filled with the sharp smell of burned oils and alien speeches. A few cooks turned their heads, but none moved to help. One of them, a squat four-armed creature with drooping eyes, grunted, just leave on the floor, she'll wake up later. Daniel stopped in his tracks. On the floor, his voice was low and morose. The cook shrugged, turning back to stir a pot. "That's what we do, no time for weakones." The words hit Daniel like acid. He wanted to shout, but he swallowed the anger. It wouldn't help Lyra if he wasted time arguing. He found a quiet corner of the staff room, away from the noise and heat, and carefully laid her down on a bench. She looked even smaller now, her silver hair falling loosely across her face. He brushed it acid gently, noticing how pale she was. He sighed softly, almost like speaking to a killed, "You're safe, just breate." Her chest rose and fell, shallow and unsteady. Daniel se arched the room and spotted a water container. He grabbed a cup, filled it, and brought it back. Kneeling beside her, he dipped his fingers into the cold water and took them lightly to her lips. Come on, Lyra, wake up just a little. For a moment, nothing happened. Then her lips parted weakly and she drew in a faint sip. Her golden eyes flickered open, clouded and confused. What happened? Her voice was barely more than air. "You collapsed," Daniel sighed gently. "You were shaking and then you fainted." Her eyes widened slowly as the memory returned. She tried to sit up, but her body wouldn't obey. She sank back onto the bench, trembling. Daniel pressed a hand to her shoulder. Don't move, just rest. You don't need to push yourself rigged, no. A way a cloud escaped her throat filled with sadness. Rest is not something we can afford. Daniel frowned, we not. Her eyes disdained their golden irises dim in the low light. Because if we stop, we lose our shifts. If we lose shifts, we lose credits. And if we lose credits, my family starves. My kin doesn't get second chance, not like you. His chest tightened at her words. She wasn't just working for herself. She was breaking her body for others, family far away who depended on her. If seen humans, she whispered, working all day, then lifting again the next morning as if their strength never runs out. My people we give everything in on a burst. On cetat is spent, we are empty. Our bodies refuse to rise again until cycles pass. But the world does not wait for us. Her hand trembled as she reached for the cup he held. Daniel helped her guide it to her lips. She drank slowly, her throat moving with effort. When she lowered the cup, the earth shone at the edges of her eyes. We would you help me, you don't even know me. Daniel met her gaze firmly, because it's the rigged thing to do. The words were simple, but they struck her like lightning. She stared at him as if he had said something impossible, something she had never heard before. Her lips parted trembling, the rigged thing. Yeah, he sighed, on earth if someone falls we pick them up. It doesn't matter if they're a stranger, it doesn't matter if they're weak. You help because on a day it could be you linktere. For the first time a true expression flickered across her face. Not the forced smile she gave to customers, not the polite mask, but something raw surprise disbelief and a spark of hope. You humans, she whispered, her voice breaking. You're strange, you burn so bright, again and again, my kind we only burn once and fade until the next cycle. Daniel gave a small, teared smile, ma I bet we were god to jeter, you remind us to rest, and we remind you to keep trying. A tear slipped down her cake, trailing across her grey skin. She quickly brushed it away as if ashamed, but Daniel coaxed her wrist gently. Don't eat aside, you've carried too much alone, let someone help for once. Her lips trembled, but she didn't pull away. Instead, she let out a shaky breath, and for the first time since she walked into that dinner, her body seemed to relax just a little. She whispered on a last word before her eyelids grew heavy again, thank you. Daniel sat busy there long after she drifted back into sleep. E stayed to make sur her breathing grew steady, that her color returned, that she was safe. And as she sat there staring at the faint glow of her golden eyes beneath closed lids, he realized something. It wasn't just her body that had collapsed. It was her spirit too, crushed under endless work, endless indifference, endless survival. But maybe, just maybe, on a human cold reminder that she wasn't alone. And in that quiet staff room, with only the hum of the station around them, Daniel made a silent promise. He would not let her fall again. Not if he could help it, the hum of the station was constant. Engines rumbled through the metal walls, and the neons inside the dinner flickered in their endless glow. Life on the trade station never paused, it kept moving forward, no matter what fell behind. But Daniel didn't forget. After that night, when Lyra fainted into his arms, he returned to the dinner the next day. He expected she wouldn't be working so soon, not after what he had seen. But when he stepped through the buzzing door, there she was again, moving carefully between tables with a tray in her shaking hands. Daniel felt his chest tighten. Her skin still looked pale, and her steps were slower than ever. Yet she forced a smile for each customer, bowing politely, apologizing whenever someone grew impatient. No one noticed her trembling hands. No one cared. Daniel sat at the same spot at the counter waiting. When she saw him, her golden eyes widened in quiet surprise. For just a moment her mask slipped, and he saw real relief. You come back, she whispered when she set his drink down. Of course I did, Daniel sighed. How are you feeling? She forced another small smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. Better, a little rest, some water. My kind recovers slowly, but work doesn't wait. Daniel leaned forward. You shouldn't even be standing, Lyra. Her shoulders tensed at his words, but she kept her voice soft. If he don't stand, he don't work. If he don't work, my family doesn't eat. Weakness is not a choice for me. Daniel's kestake dat te quiet truth in her words. He wanted to argue, to tell her to stop, but he knew she couldn't, not in his place, not with her family depending on her. So instead he stayed. All day he remained at the counter, eating slowly, ordering drinks and barely talked, just to give her a reason to return to in between customers. Each time he asked simple things, if she had eaten, if she had rested, if she was drinking water. Each time she brushed his concern away with a weak smile. But little by little her shoulders seemed less heavy when she spoke to him. Later that night, when the dinner was quieter, Daniel found her again in the staff room during a short break. She was sitting on the bench and had bowed, silver hair falling like a curtain around her face. He sat busy there without a word. For a moment she didn't look at him. Then she spoke in a voice so small it barely reacted him. "We are you doing this, Daniel?" We kept asking if him well. We kept helping. No one else does. Daniel stared at the floor, his hands clasped together. "Because you matter, even if the others don't say it." She turned her head slowly, her golden eyes studying him, searching for lies. She didn't find any. "No one has ever said that to me before," she whispered. Daniel strode thick-tanned. He wanted to reach out, but he didn't. He just let the silence sit between them until she found the courage to continue. "My people, we are not like yours. We can only give once before we break. When our strength runs out, we collapse, and our bodies refuse to rise again for days. To others, we are weak, disposable." Her voice cracked on the last word. Daniel shook his head. "You're not disposable, Lyra. You're carrying more than most people ever could. That doesn't make you weak. That makes you stronger than they'll ever understand." Her lips parted as if she wanted to argue, but no words came. Instead, the tears welled in her eyes, shimmering like molten gold. She quickly brushed them away with trembling fingers. Daniel gently caught her wrist before she called her face again. Don't hide it from me. You don't have to pretend anymore." Her breath hit down for the first time. She let her tears fall freely. Silent, trembling shook her shoulders. Daniel stayed busy there, steady and calm, letting her lean against him as the weight she carried slipped out in the form of the hair she had buried for too long. When she finally pulled back, her face streaked with shining trails, she whispered, We humans never stop. We can you work and fight and carry again and again, my kind, we burn out so fast, but you." Daniel talked for a moment, then smiled sadly. "Because that's what being human is. We keep going. We fall, we hurt, we break, but we get up again. Not because we're unbreakable, but because we chose to stand anyway." Lyra stared at him, her golden eyes with her tears still fresh. "You say it so simply, but to me it sounds like magic." Daniel chuckled softly. "Maybe it is." From that night onward things changed. Daniel made it a habit to visit the dinner every day after his shifts. Sometimes he helped her carry heavy trays when no one was looking. Sometimes he distracted rude customers with his sharp human humor until Lyra could slip away. Sometimes he simply sat at the counter, letting her know Someone was there for her. Slowly she began to smile at him, not the forced smile she gave others, but a real one, fragile and soft, like the first rays of light after a long night. And Daniel realized something. He wasn't just staying for her sake. He needed this too. In her golden eyes, he found Someone who understood struggle, Someone who carried burden silently, Someone who reminded him we humans fought so hard in the first place. Because no one deserved to carry the weight of survival alone. One evening as the artificial lights dimmed to mimic night, Lyra leaned against the counter where Daniel sat. Her hands still shook, but her eyes were bright there. "Daniel," she whispered when he collapsed, he thought he was worthless. That my body had betrayed me, that my family would suffer because he wasn't strong enough. Daniel turned toward her, his gaze steady, and no. She swallowed, her voice breaking. "No, I think maybe I'm not worthless, because Someone stayed, Someone carried, you carried." Daniel felt something tighten in his chest. He reacted out, brushing a silver strand of hair from her face. "He'll always carry Lyra." Breat caught golden eyes shining in the soft light, and for the first time since she had met her, she didn't look like she was about to collapse. She looked alive. And Daniel Knautis was only the beginning, the days turned into weeks, and Daniel's visits to the dinner became routine. Some of the regulars even noticed, whispering about the strange woman was at the counter very evening, his eyes always following the grey-skinned white dress with the golden eyes. Daniel didn't care what they talked, it wasn't there for them. It was there for Lyra. Every day she still pushed herself to serve customers who barely looked at her. She still forged smiles when traders barked impatient orders. But there was a difference now because whenever she turned her head, she would seem sitting there, waiting, and that alone seemed to give her the strength to keep standing. One quiet evening, the dinner was less busy than usual. Daniel sat at his usual place, and Lyra leaned against the counter, taking a short breath before her next round. "Your hair again," she sighed softly, her lips curling into a small smile. "Where else would he be?" Daniel replied, sipping from his glass. Her golden eyes studied him. "You don't get tired. You work all day and then you sit there for hours. Isn't that exhausting?" Daniel chuckled. "Sure, I get tired, but this is different. Work drains me, sitting here isn't." Lyra tilted her head, silver strands of hair leading across her cake. "Why not?" "Because I'm with you," Daniel sighed simply. The words made her breath catch. For a moment she looked away, her cakes darkening faintly with color. "You women's always saying things so boldly. My people would never speak like that." Daniel leaned forward, resting his chin on his hand. "Maybe that's why your people and mine are so different. You non ce antem fade. We burn again and again because we refuse to keep quiet about what matters." Her eyes softened. "And you think I matter?" Daniel didn't hesitate. "Yes, more than you know." She lowered her gaze, her hands trembling slightly on the counter, but when she looked up again, her golden eyes were shimmering with something fragile and new. After her shift ended that night, Daniel offered to walk her back to her quarters. At first she refused. None had ever walked her home before, and she was embarrassed at the thought. But when he insisted gently, she gave in. The corridors of the station were quiet, filled only with the distant hum of engines and the flicker of overhead lights. They walked side by side, their steps echoing softly. Lyra held her arms close to her chest. "You shouldn't waste your time with me. I'm not important." Daniel glanced at her, his brow furrowed. "Why do you keep saying that?" "Because it's true," she whispered. "I am one of thousands. White dresses clean as laborers we are invisible. If I fall, another will take my place. My family needs me, yes, but the galaxy does not." Daniel stopped walking. She turned confused but froze when she saw the fear in his eyes. "Don't ever say that again," he said firmly. "You're not invisible, not to me. And if the galaxy is too blind to say your word, then that's the galaxy's law, not yours." Her lips parted, but no words came. She stared at him as if he had spoken something impossible. And maybe had, because no one had ever told her she mattered beyond the wage of her labor. For a moment she just stood there, her silver hair glowing faintly in the dim corridor lights. Then slowly she smiled, a real smile, soft and trembling but alive. "Thank you, Daniel," she whispered. Over time their bond deepened. Daniel learned more about her people. She explained how a species could give their full strength only during each cycle, and after that, their bodies would demand days of stillness to recover. Employers on the station didn't care. They forced their others like her to keep working, punishing them when they collapsed. Daniel listened and jersey simmering in his chest. "That's not rigged. No one should be treated like that." Lyra shook her head sadly. "It is the way of things, the strong rise, the weak endure, my people endure." But Daniel leaned closer, his voice steady. "Enduring isn't the same as living. You deserve more than survival, Lyra. You deserve to dream." Her golden eyes widened at the word. Dream. She had never allowed herself such a luxury. One night after the dinner closed, Daniel convinced her to sit with him in the station's garden dome. Artificial starlight glowed above them, reflecting off the poles of water and patches of carefully grown plants. Lira sat on te grass uging knees looking up at the false stars. I've never left this station, she admitted softly. Not once in my wole life. I've ever known his work to earn credits, work to send them home, work to keep breathing. I thought that was a life called the verbe. Daniel lay back on the grass, hands behind his head. On earth we have so with you can't say the end, ocean so deep they swallow the horizon, mountains that touch the clouds. If you saw them, you'd know life is more than just working until you fall. Her voice was a whisper. It sounds beautiful, but for someone like me beauty is only a story. Daniel turned his head toward her, then il make sure it becomes more than a story. Her breath caught, her golden eyes shining as they met his. For a moment neither of them spoke. The silence stretched, filled only with the soft hum of the dome's machinery and the imagined songs of distant stars. Finally she whispered, "You make me believe in things I thought were impossible." Daniel smiled faintly, "Then believe, because with humans impossible doesn't last very long." She laughed softly, the sound fragile but real. It was the first time I had ever heard her laugh without sadness hiding beneath it. In that garden dome under the artificial stars, something unspoken grew between them, a bond made not from duty or survival, but from choice. And Daniel realized he wasn't just protecting her anymore. He was falling for her the dinner was busier than ever that night. Traders, smugglers, and travelers filled every boat and every stall at the counter. The air was thick with noise, laughter, shooting, clattering plates, the smell of strange alien speeches mixed with human coffee. Daniel sat in his usual place, but his jaw was tense. A cold already said that Lyra was struggling. She carried thrice a her frame cold bear, rushing from table to table with no pause. Sweat dampened her silver hair, and her golden eyes looked duller than usual. She hadn't rested in 3 shifts. Lyra, Daniel called softly when she passed by. "Slow down, you're pushing too hard." But she only forced a smile, shaking her head. "I can't, too many customers tonicked. If I fail, they'll take my credits again. My family will suffer." Daniel's fists tightened, e had off her control their life. The night stretched on. Daniel watched every step she took, his heart pounding with worry. Each time she swayed, his muscles tensed as if ready to catch her. And then it happened. She was carrying a tray full of steaming bowls when her knees buckled. Her eyes rolled back, and before anyone could react, the tray crashed to the floor, scattering food and shards of bowls everywhere. Gasps filled the dinner. A few customers muttered angrily about their meals. Useles girl barked the manager, a thick scaled alien with a deep voice, always collapsing at the wrong time. Lyra lay on the ground, trembling, her breath shallow. Daniel's chair creaked against the floor as he leapt up. He knelt beside her, lifting her gently into his arms. "Lyra, stay with me. You're okay, I've got you." Her golden eyes fluttered open weakly. She whispered, "I am sorry." "You have nothing to be sorry for," Daniel said firmly. His voice shook, but his arms were steady. He turned, glaring at the manager. "She's not a machine. She needs rest." The manager sneered. "Humans don't understand. Her kind only works on a chicle at full strength. If she collapses, she should stay out of the way, but she insists on working every shift. That's her choice." "No," Daniel growled, standing with Lyra in his arms. "That's not a choice. That's la very disguised a survival." He carried her out of the dinner, ignoring the manager's shouting and the customer's stares. The corridors were quiet outside, and Daniel lowered her carefully onto a bench. Her body shook as she tried to breathe. "I didn't want you to see me like this." Daniel knelt in front of her, holding her cold hands. "Lyra, listen to me. You don't need to keep proving your worth by destroying yourself. You already matter to your family and to me." Her eyes filled with tears. She shook her head. "If I stop till replace me, my family will starve." Daniel swallowed hard. He knew the truth of her words, but his heart screamed against them. "No," he said, "we'll find another way. I won't let them break you." That night, Daniel stayed with her in her small quarters. The room was barely larger than a storage closet, just a tin bed, a cracked light, and a few old photos of her family on the wall. She lay on the bed too weak to sit up, while Daniel sat on the floor beside her, refusing to leave. We do yo dotis for me, she whispered. Daniel looked at her, his voice soft but steady, because you reward it, because non else says you te weido, and because hesitated ten let the words out, because I care about yo lira, more than I cared about anione in a long time. Era yes widened shimmering even in the dim light, yo care for me. Yes, decide simply I do. A tear slid down her cake, she reacted out with a trembling hand, and Daniel gently took it in his own. Her skin was cold, fragile, but her touch sent warmth through him. You make me feel like I'm not invisible, she whispered. That's because you're not, Daniel replied, not to me, never to me. Over the next few days, Daniel stayed by her side. He brought her food, water, and even a blanket from his own quarters. He refused to let her return to work until her strength came back. But the station didn't care about kindness. Notices began to appear on her door warnings about missed shifts, fines, and deductions. The manager even came once, banging on the door, demanding she return. Daniel stood in the doorway, blocking the alien with his broad shoulders. She's not working until she recovers. If you want her to collapse and die, you'll have to go through me first. The manager snarled but backed away, muttering threats about ducking all her pie. When Daniel closed the door, Lyra looked at him with wide eyes. You risk yourself for me, we. Daniel smiled faintly, because that's what humans do. We fight for the people we care about, even if the whole galaxy tells us not to. One evening, as Lyra's strength slowly returned, she sat up for the first time without shaking. Daniel was at her side instantly, studying her. She looked at him for a long moment before speaking. My people we are not used to second chance. When our strength is gone we rest. When we fail we accept it, that is our way, but you her voice trembled. You don't accept failure. You rise again, and again, and again. Daniel nodded, that's humanity's gift. We fall 100 times, but we always get back up. Her golden eyes sustained. Then maybe if we stay near you we can learn how to rise too. Daniel's chest tightened. He reacted up, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. You already have Lyra. You're stronger than you know. She leaned forward, resting her forehead against his. With you we fell alive. And in that quiet, fragile moment, Daniel knew the truth. This wasn't just about saving her anymore. He loved her. And they would fight the entire galaxy if that's what it took to keep her safe. The days after Lyra's collapse changed everything. Daniel couldn't look at the dinner the same way again. Te looked at the clinking glasses, the shooting customers it all felt poisoned. Because no saw what lay beneath it. Broken bodies like Lyra's forced to smile while their strength drained away. He couldn't stay silent anymore. When Lyra was finally strong enough to walk again, she insisted on returning to work. I have no choice, she said, her voice firm to her hands shook. If I don't, I'll cut off my credits, my family will starve. Daniel patched a small room, frustration burning in his chest. It's not fair. They use your people until you collapse. They don't even treat you like people Lyra. Her golden eyes softened. That is the way of things, my kind we endure, always that is how we survive. Daniel stopped patching and knelt in front of her. His voice dropped low, filled with emotion. Enduring isn't enough. You deserve more than survival. You deserve freedom. You deserve happiness. Her lips parted trembling, and wo will give it to me, to us. Daniel took her hands. If no one else will, then he will. That's what it means to be human, we fight even when the odds are impossible. She stared at him for a long moment. Her eyes shimmered with tears she didn't let fall. Then you are either very brave, Daniel, or very foolish. He smiled faintly, maybe both. The next evening, Daniel walked with her back to the dinner. His jaw was set, his mind made up. He wouldn't just sit and watch anymore. Inside, the manager was barking orders. Other white dresses with silver hair and grey skin moved quickly, their eyes downcast, their steps unsteady. Daniel could see out in they were, how tired their movements had become. Lyra wasn't the only one on the edge of collapse. There were dozens just like her. Daniel's fists clenched. When the manager saw Lyra, his scalded lips curled. Back are you God, you owe me for lost shifts. You'll work double until the debt is paid. Lyra lowered her head in shame, but before she could speak, Daniel stepped forward. No, said sharply she won't. The room went silent, customers turned to look, the other workers froze with the aid. The manager sneered, and were you to say that woman? Daniel stood tall, his voice steady. Im someone was says what you were doing. You were killing them, pushing them past their limits just to squeeze a few more credits from their blood. It ends no. The manager laughed a deep ugly sound, and will you stop me, you were alone. Daniel says burned with fear. Humans don't need to be money to make a difference. One is no if he refuses to stay silent. That nigged whisper spread across the station. About a woman was stood up in the middle of the dinner, challenging the manager in front of Everione. About a carried the frail waitress out again, ignoring the jeers of those who mocked him. For the first time the workers had seen Someone defend them. For the first time ope flickered in their tired eyes. But ope come sweet danger. The next day Daniel was stopped in the corridor by two guards hired by the dinner's owner. One shoved him against the wall. You're making trouble, woman, the guard growled. Stay out of it. These workers are property of the station. You have no right to interfere. Daniel glared back. They're not property. They're people. And if you think you can scare me into silence, you don't know humans very well. The guard slammed a fist into his stomach, making him stagger, but Daniel didn't fall. He strengthened his voice like steel. You can beat me, you can threaten me, but he won't stop. Because once a woman decides to fight for something, nothing in the galaxy can break him. The guards exchanged uneasy glances before finally walking away, muttering curses. Daniel wiped blood from his lip, but he was smiling. The fear inside him only burned brighter. When Lyra saw the bruise on his face, she gasped, Daniel, what happened? Doesn't matter, he sighed. What matters is this we're not alone. The others saw what happened last night. They retired of suffering. They ready to rise Lyra, but they need someone to lead them. She shook her head fear in her eyes. No, my people do not rise. We endure if they resist, they'll be punished, or worse. Daniel cupped her face gently. And if they keep enduring, they'll waste away until nothing's left. Don't you say? The galaxy keeps them in chains because they believe they can't break free. But if they say on of their own stand up, if they say you then everything changes. Her golden eyes filled with doubt. Me, I am nothing special, Daniel, just a waitress. No, I whispered fiercely. You're the strongest person I've ever met. You've survived a life designed to crush you, and you've still kept your kindness. That makes you more than special. That makes you a leader. Lyra's breath shocked her spilling freely no. She leaned into his hands, whispering, You make me believe in impossible things again. Daniel smiled softly, Ten believe, because impossible is where humans shine the brightest. The next evening, when the workers gathered in the shadows of the docking bay, Daniel stood among them. Dozens of tired, grey-skinned women and men with silver hair, their golden eyes dull from exhaustion. They looked at him with uncertainty fear, and a spark of something more. Lyra stepped forward trembling. She looked at her people then back at Daniel, who gave her a small nod. Taking a deep breath, she raised her voice. We do not have to endure anymore. For too long they have treated us as tools. For too long we have accepted their cruelty. But no more, we are not machines. We are alive, and we deserve to live. A murmur swept through the crowd. Golden eyes began to shine with tears, with anger, with hope. Daniel stepped busy there, his voice carrying strong and clear. You're not alone anymore. Humanity knows what it's like to fight for freedom. And if you stand together, if you reason no, then you will never be invisible again. For the first time, the workers strengthened their backs. Their fear turned into something sharper resolve. And in that moment, Daniel knew. The fight had begun. The workers gathered in the shadows of the docking bay, their golden eyes glowing faintly in the dim lights. There were dozens of them frail, tired, but no longer broken. They stood close together, their silver hair shimmering like threads of light. For the first time, Daniel could say it in their faces, not just fear but hope. Lyra stood at the front. Her hands trembled as she looked at her people, but her back was straight. The quiet waitress, the girl who had always endured in silence, was no longer reading. Daniel stod besi der is presence steadi, is expression calm but fierce, e had chosen is place not in front of her not beind but at her side. Tonic lira began er voice soft but clear, we decide if we are tolls or if we are people. We have endured too long, a very collapse, a very punishment, a very insult we have carried them like chains, but chains can break, and if they break once, they never hold the same again. The crowd stirred, murmurs of agreement rippled through them. Daniel's voice followed strong and unshakable. You are not slaves, you are not machines, you are living beings, and none has rigged to grind you into the ground. If you stand to jeter, if you refuse to work until they treat you as equals, then you win, not because you fight with fists, but because you finally chose to live. The next day the dinner opened as usual, but when the first orders came, none moved. The waitress stood still, tracing their hands but feet unmoving. The cook stopped stirring their pots, and when the cleaners put down their rags, silence filled the room. The manager stormed out, his scald face twisting in rage. What is this work now? Lyra stepped forward, her voice shook, but her eyes burned like fire. No. The word rang out sharp as glass. The manager froze. What did you say? Lyra took a deep breath. Her people were watching, Daniel was watching. She couldn't falter. No, we are not machines. We will not collapse for your profit anymore. We demand fair shifts, fair rest and fair pay, or we do not work at all. The dinner erupted in gasps. Customers leaned forward, sensing history in the making. The manager's scales flushed dark with fury. You dare defime, you are nothing replaceable. Daniel stood, stepping besi de Lyra. His voice boomed across the room. Ten replace them, replace every single one of them, because none of them will bend to you anymore. The standoff stretched. For a moment it seemed violence would break out. The guards moved forward, their hands on their weapons. But the workers didn't scatter this time. They stood shoulder to shoulder, their golden eyes glowing brighter than ever. Lyra raised her kin, urtone of us and you'll have it or to sal. The guards hesitated. It was on a thing to beat down a single frail worker. It was another to crush dozens standing united. The customers muttered uneasily, some whispering that the human might start a riot. The manager's eyes darted between them, his jaw ticked, finally a spat on the ground. Fine, you want to play rebels, don't come crawling back when you're starving, you're finished there. But his words carried no victory. Because as he stormed back into his office, the workers didn't bow their heads, they lifted them. For the first time they had said no. Later in the garden dome, the workers scattered again. Their faces glowed with something Daniel had rarely seen before joy. They laughed, some cried, some ugedea choter. For once they weren't talking about survival, they were talking about tomorrow. Lyra stood at the center, her silver hair glowing under the artificial stars. When Daniel approached, she turned to him, her golden eyes shimmering. You were rigged, she whispered. We can rise, even my people, even me. Daniel smiled softly. He didn't make you rise, Lyra. You did that yourself. He just reminded you of what you already had inside. Her breath trembled. We thought you never would have believed it. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. And we thought you never would have remembered what makes humans truly human. She tilted her head. And what is that? Love, Daniel sighed simply. Her eyes within, tears brimming. For a long moment she just stared at him. Then slowly she reached out, her trembling hand resting on his chest. Daniel, I think I love you too. They stood together under the dome stars, their foreheads talking, the galaxies far away. Around them, her people laughed and whispered about freedom, about rest, about hope. But for Daniel and Lyra, the world had narrowed to just two beating hearts. For her love had once been impossible, for him it had once been lost. But together they had found it again. And as they held on to each other, Daniel talked of what he had told her that very first night. Impossible doesn't last very long. And in that moment, with Lyra's golden eyes shining against the starlight, he knew it was true. The workers would face struggles ahead, the managers would not give up easily, but everything had changed. The chains had cracked and once cracks appear, freedom always follows. And no matter what came next, Daniel knew anything with certainty. Humanity wasn't just about survival or strength or defiance. It was about giving others the courage to rise. And he had given that to her. To lira the alien waitress who had once collapsed in his arms. Now she stood tal beside him. And to jeter te would face the stars.